Hey, welcome to the Every.Thing.After podcast. We've got some special guests in the studio today, and I'm so excited to introduce Ian Lee and Sarah Sargent Pepper from the Cle Elum. I was introduced to this band just a few weeks ago when they opened for Nada Surf at the Grog Shop in Cleveland, Ohio, and let me tell you, just an instant fan. Not just of their music, which is indie power pop punk rock, lyrically driven, relatable, often funny, but also of the story of this band, which I'll let Ian and Sarah tell. Welcome to the podcast, Ian and Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. That's such a great setup. Oh my God.
I'm just like singing your songs in my head all day today. Just so excited about doing this podcast. The lyrics are so catchy. There's so many that I love. Probably
Thanks,
the one I relate to the most is Old Folks, which is also Old Fucks. We're all kind of old fucks right now.
You caught that, huh?
But I've talked to Sarah about this a little bit, chatted a little bit, but when I learned your story, it just seemed like a perfect fit with what I'm trying to do with the podcast, and that's to tell stories about creative people who are discovering or rediscovering, inventing or reinventing, or maybe just exercising for the first time or the first time in a while, a creative muscle that it turns out is just everything. I think some might call that a midlife crisis. But it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen at midlife, and it's not a crisis; it's a rising. For this podcast, we call it an ETA, which is short for Everything After.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about the story of your band, if you would.
I'll go. It's funny because we think of it. When we talk about it, obviously we lived it, and so we have this experience. We're in the sort of narrative timeline of it, but for the general way that bands are made or started, we did everything completely in some bananas, everything after, everything before, right in the wheelhouse of the podcast. Like, it's weird because so we've been together as a couple. I mean, that's kind of known thing, about 15 years. And like we have I'll just give you the Cliff Notes version. Like Sarah had started playing drums. I was, before we met, and then, I was in a Led Zeppelin tribute band, and that's how we met. And I played drums, and I was playing, so I was in a wig playing John Bonham, stuff. Speaking of midlife crises, you know what I mean? Like, that. So I was doing a lot of doing that. And the band got pretty big. We were playing, by the end we were doing big shows and all that kind of stuff. And it was fun, but it was sort of like, anyways, whatever. That's how I was doing that. It's another chapter. I was playing in a Led Zeppelin tribute band. And then, so Sarah and I got together and Love at First Sight and all that kind of stuff. And then she kind of got, we got together, and then Sarah started like tour managing the band and doing merchandising for the band. And as the Led Zeppelin band kind of kept growing, we got sucked in, new couple and all that kind of stuff. We got sucked into just the whole thing of that, and our whole life got kind of swallowed up. And then we were like, well,
let's just quit our day jobs and just tour nonstop all the time.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I should cash out my 401k and we should buy our first tour bus.
Yeah.
Seems like a great idea.
No, it's been good. It's been good. It's been good.
Yeah.
So that kind of got us started into like working full time in the music industry and getting to tour with all kinds of great, amazing bands, Nada Surf included, and a huge roster of really amazing bands once we had our first tour bus.
Yeah, so we bought that's the quick version. So so that's like, I'm in a Led Zeppelin band. We buy a tour bus. We start like packaging ourselves as like, I'm the bus driver. We got a bus. Sarah will do merch for you and tour manage you. And we know a lot of bands. I was in Chicago that, we had started off, the band was in Chicago. We lived in San Francisco. So we were kind of like flying around and all this kind of stuff. And like we do Tortoise, so I know those guys. We got a lot of musician friends and stuff. So like we tour manage Tortoise, and then we do Sunvolt, and it just kind of grows where we're sort of known as like this couple that is like this all inclusive, artist friendly package that like cares. Our company's called Affordable Tour Solutions, so we obviously care about bands, and then we've got buses, and then we saw a path to like building sort of like a financial future or business to ourselves. I was kind of getting bored of the Led Zeppelin band, and I was like, well, we got this bus business over here, and then I got this Led Zeppelin business band, cover band, which is doing great, but I felt like kind of like a crossroads. And so we, in 2017, did a huge tour, and then, moved on from that band, quit the band. They got another drummer. They're still out there doing their thing. And then Sarah and I just focused on the bus business. That was end of 2017. And then, so we're building this bus business and touring.
Well, we started the bus business in 2014.
I know, but I'm saying I ended the Zeppelin band in 2017.
Oh, right.
So we had started the bus business in 2014, and then, we kind of just kept building, but doing the Zeppelin band, back and forth. And then we saw that okay, there was a potential for us to have a business here or whatever. So we just in 2017, and I was wearing a wig, like I said. So I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm wearing a wig playing a Led Zeppelin band, and what am I going to be, 50 playing in a Led Zeppelin cover band? That's stupid. Let's just focus on, and I was like 48 or whatever. So I was like, so anyways, focus on the bus business starting in end of 2017. And then and we were kind of chugging along trying to build that into a stable thing for ourselves. And then really the pandemic hit, and we were just about to the point where we felt like, okay, well, the bus business is kind of starting to stabilize, and we got a good company, we got a great reputation, we've got all these amazing clients, and like I said, we had started touring with, Sunvolt and Tortoise and Not a Surf, where we started touring with them.
Tommy Stinson of The Replacements.
Yeah,
just a bunch of really
Jane's
awesome,
Addiction,
cool.
and we got a Manchester Orchestra. We can name drop all our favorite bands that we've worked with. So we have unbelievable amounts of Andrew Bird. We do all his touring, all these amazing artists in our life, and life was really good. And we got a lot of pleasure. We still get a lot of pleasure out of being support people and helping bands. Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, and so we're jamming along and sort of starting to feel like, okay, well, we're getting to a point where we're going to maybe see some payoff, and the bus business is getting good and better. And then pandemic happens, and we're like, oh my God, so.
We're out of work. All of our friends are out of work.
Yeah,
our
the whole music business shuts down, right?
Right.
Probably one of the industries that got hit the hardest.
Well, it was the first it was the first industry to close and the last to open because of vaccines and public, gatherings and all that kind of stuff. So
there was a lot of financial stress,
big
a lot
time.
of,
I think,
not just for us, but empathy for everyone in our industry that's going through it. And I think it was,
yeah, it's funny. I'm wearing
stressful, and
I'm wearing our venue shirts. One of the things, Sarah does merchandising, so she knows all the merchandising managers and all the venues and all this stuff. And then we know all these places where it's like, oh my God, our venue's going to survive and all this kind of stuff. And it was very stressful.
Yeah. Very stressful time, but with that came a lot of free time because we were.
The business had essentially swallowed up our free time and our creative life. I quit the Zeppelin band because it was sort of like a business or whatever, or like a job, and there was no. We didn't have any real creative outlets. So when the pandemic happened, we just were like, okay, well, we were renting a house in Las Vegas, and we decided to start hiking. And our house was something we were barely ever in, because we're touring all the time, and we had basically all of our music equipment in the thing. And like I said, Sarah got sucked into this whole life, and she hadn't even really been, she started playing drums before we met. Here we are 10 years later, and she's like, oh, finally I get to play my drums again.
Yeah.
And we have piano and guitars and stuff. And
my tour schedule had been so crazy since starting the bus business. Since 2014, I was on the road 280 to 300 days a year.
Yeah, pretty nonstop.
On tour, doing tour after tour after tour, which is kind of a schedule that I've still maintained, except for during the pandemic, which is when we have some free time.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of these, a lot of people I think that we talked to since the pandemic's over, a lot of reevaluation, and kind of where's it all going? And we definitely had that, and we just decided okay, well, let's, we did some creative things, we did vacations and help people move to keep the buses going. We basically put an ad on Facebook, and that's how we financially survived the pandemic, by just doing these random weird, barely we just scraped by, and it was very rough, right? So, but for us, every day we'd kind of go for a hike, and then we'd kind of sit down and we'd start writing, and we just sort of because we literally just jumped into our life in that way, and it was kind of well, obviously I'm not going to play drums, and Sarah's going to play drums, and she had never been in a band, and I had never played guitar in a band or been a front man or a lead singer or anything like that. I played in lots of bands and all that kind of stuff, so it was kind of an interesting I felt like we were equal, we were both sort of new. It was new, but and through the course of our thing, Sarah's I'm a drummer too, And I'm like,
which was always tricky with us too, because like, I don't know if you or like your audience knows this, but Ian's actually an incredible drummer. I mean, like one of the best drummers that I know. And so that was always kind of interesting, you know, us talking about maybe doing something musically, but how does that work? Because he's the drummer, but I want to be a drummer.
And I always thought of myself as a leader. You know, it's funny because I always never wanted to start a band, because I always thought, like, I just was like, I'm a drummer. I'm never going to start a band because I don't want to be a guitar. Hey, drummer, you know, can you play it like I play it? You know, like turn around and look into it. I didn't want to be that guy because I've been a drummer and I've had lead singers tell me, all you lead singers that I've ever been in a band with that are watching this right now, this is the band. You know, so I was like, you know, I didn't want to be that. And now it's like double sensitive because it's the love of my life. And, you know, like, so we're kind of like, so yeah, but it was good for me because, I don't know if there's a joke, the last thing a drummer says before he gets kicked out of a band. Do you know that joke?
No.
Yeah, I got some songs. That's a drummer joke. So
that's great.
Anyway, so like so here I am like going, okay, well I can't play drums because Sarah's going to be the drummer, and we had a sort of a joke band or in our mind we were calling our band Shave in our mind because I would never shave or whatever, you know. We're like, oh, yeah, Shave. We're going to be all these. We're basically going to be like Gary Glitter meets Iggy Pop meets Joan Jett. That was like the total. You know, concept.
Some
anyway,
like rock and roll fantasy.
Sarah's like, I'm gonna look so cool playing drums. She had this whole idea of like, you know, signature rock.
Which is kind of an idea.
Stick twirling.
But I don't think we ever really set out to make an album, or
we did.
It just kind of happened organically. Like we made one song, and
so that's kind of how it happened. We just started like, you know, we just were like, okay, let's. And we would just sort of like go for a hike every morning. I'd pick up my guitar, sit behind the piano, and Sarah'd sit behind the drums, and I'd start going, you know, bling, 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 whatever. And then I'd go like, you know, I'm playing some kind of boneheaded in my mind guitar part, and she'd come over the drum part, and she'd be like, yeah, it's cool. And I'd be like, all right, let's see where this goes. And I'd sort of mush mouth like blah, 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 blah. And I'd stumble across, you know, there's like every artist, you know, musician has a writing process, and ours was kind of like, you know, kind of this, it was very intuitive and very like, you know, for me as a guy who's played drums a lot and thinks, I was just like, no, that drum part's cool. Like, don't change anything. And she'd be like, well, really? Is it cool? I'd be like, no, that's a fucking awesome.
And I do the same thing with like your guitar part.
Yeah, she'd be like, that's cool. That's I'd be like, no, this is dumb. And she'd be like, no, just keep going. You know, so these very rudimentary kind of experiences, but you know, I think in our set, you know, the first song that we wrote together was "I Wanted to Sleep," and I was playing bass on it, you know, and I'm not a bass player. I'm just a guy who's been in lots of bands and, you know, kind of can fake my way across a lot of instruments. And, you know, it was kind of like, my view is that the antenna, there's some spiritual antenna that was going up where it was like, she'd play this beat, I'd play it, doom, 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 and she'd play a beat, and I'd be like, yeah, it's cool. And I'd be like, I don't know, thinking, man, bus driver, you know? And I'd be like, I want to sleep. Oh, good. Okay, good. I got that song. Hang on, quiet. And then I'd just sit down, scribble at the lyrics, and it'd be like, the songs they all came really, really fast. Mm-hmm. And the antenna for like, I think what we were like, again, we're surrounded by great musicians all the time. So we get this kind of like, it was just kind of a neat thing. And anyway, so and like I'm not a recording engineer, so we had like a, you know, garage band or like a simple 4-track recording thing. We kind of wrote all the demos and we kind of demoed, and we just kind of go through this process.
Well, it was like we get one song down and then we'd be like, well, that was fun. Let's do another one. And then we'd go back the next day and do another one. And it was happening so fast. Or like I might have like a concept for like an idea for a song, and then Ian would sit down and, you know, it was like we were really playing off of each other, and it was just moving so quickly. And before we knew it, we were like, I think we might actually be making an album.
Well, I'm not going to create. We had the song. We were during the pandemic. We were demoing it, and so the songs were all in kind of rough demo form. Like we'd 4-track record them, and then we'd be, you know, again, we're in pandemic, so we don't even know what the future is. So we're kind of like, and we're hiking every day, and we're getting satisfaction out of that. So we go for a hike, and then we kind of like man, that song came out pretty good yesterday. And then, so when the pandemic ended, we the vaccines started rolling out and we started getting calls, and we were like, our schedule, everybody needed a bus. So our schedule started filling up. Lucy Dacus was our first tour, my first tour back, and then Sarah got called to do merchandising for Alanis Morissette, and we were doing all this
Garbage, and I think you did Sylvanesso, and we were really busy, coming out of the pandemic.
So it's like, okay, now the financial stress is going to kind of be on. Okay, now we can figure out digging out of the hole. Like we had put, on credit card, we were just kind of barely hanging on, and we were like, okay, well, let's start digging out of the mess. And then we went back on tour, and then the Zeppelin band and myself, I lived in Chicago for a long time. So I was like, hey, when we're in Chicago next week, why don't we're coming up, we're on this tour. Why don't we go into why don't we book some studio time? Because we had a day off on Andrew Bird or whatever tour we were on. And we started going into so we went in and we recorded I Wanted to Sleep, the real version. And then we're like, man, that came, now we're recording it in a real studio. We did the record at King Size Sound Labs, which is where Wilco did Summer Teeth and My Morning Jacket and Nico Case. All these great records are made. Mike Hagler is amazing, great engineer, great friend of ours, and super great space for where we were at. Sarah had never been into a recording studio, so he's like, just go in and just track. And she's slamming it on. I'm like, okay. It was just kind of very kind of, it was innocent, and sort of we were sort of in our little bubble, because we're like, well, we got a day off on tour, we're on Jawbreaker tour, and we got we got 6 hours. We got 6 hours, and then we got to go to sleep because I got to drive the bus tonight, drive the band to the next thing, and she's got to finish merch, and we got our shows load in. Mm-hmm. So it was weird. So we'd record a song, and then we'd get a mix from Mike a week later. And we
were able to get a bunch of really cool rock star friends on our album because of that. So Josh Cater of the Smoking Popes, who was on tour with us because we were on tour with Jawbreaker. Well, he was around, so we're like, hey, Josh Cater, you want to come down and be on our record?
Yeah, so our business was like our whole life, it was very interlocking, right? We had a song, and we were like, okay, that song's good, and then we had one song recorded, and then we're 4 months later, we're on a different tour, and then we did 2 more songs because we had an extra day off on tour, and then 5 months later, we did an extra 2 songs, and then kind of about halfway through the record of maybe in the first year or so of out of the pandemic, we started thinking these songs are really coming out really good, because we had them demoed, and we thought those are some pretty good songs, and then we're and we didn't have time to be a band. We weren't a local band where we're living in Vegas and playing in the local bar and doing every Monday night, hey, we got a new song we want you to hear. We didn't do any of that typical band stuff. We just went right from bus business, pandemic, to writing a bunch of songs to recording them in a great studio, and then as we kind of started filling up the thing, we were I think this is becoming a real band, and these songs are great.
I think I've heard you describe it as doing it backwards, which I think is incredible.
It's bananas, right? And it's not only backwards, but it's in the middle of being on tour. We had 2 days with Andrew Bird or something like that in Chicago, and then we were okay, well, we got 2 days, so that means we got to load in at 3:00 and the show starts at thing, and we have the next day we'll be in the same venue. So all these kind of logistical things that were kind of that is how touring is. We were working in these recording things, and Sarah and I were we had just been on tour for 5 months, so we'd rent a rehearsal studio the night before, and at 2:00 in the morning we'd go, okay, what song are we going to do tomorrow? And she'd be like, let's do I Am a Robot. I'd be like, okay, do you remember the drum parts?
How does this song go again?
It was bananas.
And some of the recordings on the record, we had only ever physically played maybe 3 or 4 times, and actually Hand Claps was written
night before.
Yeah, the night before. And the album, the version on the album, that's my first time ever playing.
That's our first time playing it together. Ever.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so
we finished. Fast. We had the idea. We were kind of we had. I think did we have one other song? We had. I think we had. I think the last 2 songs we did were Sleep and maybe. Did I Get High or something? I don't remember the sequence that we recorded.
Well, Sleep was the first.
Or no, sorry, Hand Claps. But we were like, we had a session booked, and we were like, okay, let's record. I think the last song we recorded was Did I Get High, and then we did the last, but then we were like, so we had it booked to do one song, and then we were like, okay, well, let's get that Hand Claps. We had the idea for Hand Claps, and like, we need just like a song that's about like hand claps and tambourines, just like a Iggy.
I have wanted to write a drum song like from the get-go.
Forever.
I was like,
15 years.
I really want to do like one of those drum songs that's like,
Iggy
I
Pop.
Love Rock and Roll, or like,
I Wanna Be
We
Your
Will
Dog.
Rock You,
Yeah.
or like one of the, just, you know, there's some songs out there
Drums
that are
only.
about drums
Almost
too.
drums only.
Like Avett Brothers have Kick Drum Heart, and I just thought that was so cool. Just let's write a love letter to drums, you know, with like a really catchy drum beat. So the idea of that was kicking around for a long time, which is why I think it was, you know, we went in and we kind of had the concept was
and
there.
we wrote the music. We literally went into a rehearsal at Superior Street Studios in Chicago. We went in at 3:00 in the afternoon, and Sarah came up with the drum beat and I came up with the guitar part. And then I was kind of like the chorus I had laying around for a bit. Like we'd talk about it, and then I'd be driving the tour bus through the night and I'd be going, you know, all I need is some hand claps and tambourines. I had that kind of hooky idea. And then we had the music, and I was trying to write the lyrics. I couldn't figure it out. And then we're like, the morning of the song, we were sleeping. We parked the tour bus outside the studio, and I was sleeping in the studio, and I got up early, and I was like, okay, I got to figure out the words to this song. And I was just like, oh, I got it. And that is all the words I wrote out in like 2 seconds. And then we went in the studio 45 minutes later, and then set up the drums that she tracked. And it's just This is full Guided by Voices. Guided by Voices are my favorite band of all time. And I love the simple A to B, no questions asked, just get in, get out kind of aesthetic. So
I love that song, Hand Claps.
Thanks, man. It ended up
hearing it live too, and there's like an energy between you and Sarah on stage as well. And when you sing the lyric about just put the sticks in her hands, and you kind of there was a moment between you on stage, and it was just really just magical. I thought it was just incredible. So
yeah.
Thank you. It's really fun for us too. I mean, we're just having the best time up there. Honestly, like it's so much fun.
You know, you're my kind of people. You just, you know, like you do everything, and you have something that you've realized you have something in you, and you just want to do something, and you just do it. And I think that's just awesome. You're so, and the other thing, I mean, I was kind of digging before this interview a little bit, and I noticed too that, Ian, you do the music videos as well with this stop motion animation, which I think is really cool. You just have this really cool style about everything.
Thanks,
and,
man. Thanks.
And I was realizing it was hard. I was trying to figure out how to, you know, because as someone who writes reviews, comparison is what we fall on all the time. And so I'm trying to figure out how to compare you to something. And I think it's difficult because you talk about all these musicians, these talented musicians that you know and that you tour with. And obviously you're picking up from all of them. You're picking up the best from all of them. And so it's just such a, you know, a blend of style and it's just hard to pinpoint, you know. Ian, I think sometimes I was getting a bit of like an Ozzy kind of quality to your voice with some of the lyrics.
Ozzy?
Ozzy? yeah.
Ozzy? I heard a couple things on the tour. I heard Elvis Costello and Joe Walsh. I was like,
I get that a little bit too, but no, there's some Ozzy quality to your voice, I think. But with a Foo Fighters kind of energy to it, though, just very upbeat.
I want to say just one thing on that funny thing. The reason we named the band the Cle Elum, first of all, it's a town in Eastern Washington that Sarah camped at as a kid, and it's a weird enough name, Cle Elum. That's how you pronounce it. But it's kind of nondescript in that way, so that by design we could just kind of like write songs. We didn't want to name the band like as we realized the band was becoming real and the songs were becoming like a thing. We were like, well, you know, we got Old Fucks. It's like this country-ish song, and then we got like I Wanted to Sleep, which is this like, you know, Nirvana song or whatever. Like, you know. And that's by design. Like, we didn't really want to pigeonhole ourselves into like, you know, we want to be recognized as a band that blah,
I think we view the Cle Elum as kind of like an art collective too. In more than just making music, it is an outlet for us to be able to make visual art as well, with Ian and his videos, with photography. I'm a visual artist too. I paint. I did
one of Sarah's paintings.
That's one of mine back there.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
The Bowie?
So, and and
that's
a way
awesome.
to thank you, and a way to collaborate with our other artist and musician friends, and it's just kind of like an art collective. And I think we like that the Cle Elum, like, first of all, nobody even knows what it means, which we really love. Most people don't even know how to say it, which is also really exciting to me. I mean, at first when we named it that and realized, oh my gosh, people are having a hard time saying this name, I thought, oh no, did we make a mistake?
I didn't even know how to say it. I was like, I was driving by this sign last night.
It's actually, I kind of love it. I kind of love it because it's kind of like, oh, well, if you're like in the know, like Bonnie Vare or something, like some cool name that like some people know how to say,
Yeah. And everything in the current world with this digital stuff, everything is so manicured and so perfectly positioned in the marketing campaigns of musicians and a lot of like artists growing up on YouTube and then becoming huge. It's so calculated and everything's sort of spelled out. I like the mystery of things. So anyways, that's kind of we didn't want to, and you're right. We're around all kinds of musicians all the time. So it's kind of weird because we're around Andrew Bird. Okay. He's one of the most talented people. I love touring with Andrew, and I have massive, massive respect for the amazing musicians that he has in his band and stuff. But I think the way that the Cle Elum, with the pandemic and the sort of bubble that we ended up in, just kind of because of the circumstances, it kind of allowed us to just say, well, all we think about when we sit down to write song, we don't necessarily go, we're going to write an Ozzy song or, a Joe Walsh song. We just, because I think of the love and respect that we have for each other as people, first of all, and just, our relationship and keeping that thing happy and keeping each other, looking out for each other. We've lived our, last 10 years of our life in a tour bus together. So we're we really have to, you can't be like, you forgot to put the toilet seat down. You know what I mean? It's like that touring works out a lot of stuff. So the sensitivity that we have to have for each other, it's like we don't go, okay, let's write a song that's Guided by Voices or the bands that we work with Nada Surf, we work with Sloan, we work with Sunvolt. Probably by our client list in our bus business, you could kind of tell who our biggest musical influences are because we get to go, I love Andrew Bird. Let's tour with him. Oh my God, I love Jay Farrar. Let's tour. We get to tour with Sunvolt. Blah blah blah. It's all these awesome. Yeah. So how that rubs off on us. It's I don't know. I could name you 100 bands that I love, and you can name me 100 bands that I go, oh my God, that song's the best song. That I love. We're huge fans of music, and we love being able to be surrounded, Kevin Devine or Manchester Orchestra. We've seen all these people that then become our family and our close friends. And when you tour, you are living in this sort of bubble that only touring guys know the secret of touring guys. It's very, very hard to describe that bubble. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, absolutely. It does. I need to say that when I first saw your name, because I was, I put in to cover the show, and I saw that you were open for Nada Surf, and I first saw the name, and I thought, local band, because people refer to Cleveland as CLE all the time.
That's right.
And so you're playing in Cleveland, and I thought, a local band, and I looked you up, and I was like, they're not from Cleveland. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's funny that you should mention that actually, because at merch that night, I got a ton of people that commented on that, are you guys from Cleveland? Because they'd see the name, on the record or on the T-shirts and
Didn't
stuff.
Didn't even think of it.
Yeah, and it hadn't occurred to me either. And then, and so I had to keep explaining, no, I'm from Seattle originally. It's a small town.
We didn't even catch that.
Washington, and part of another reason why we chose that name too is because it is kind of a little bit of a love letter to my Northwest roots that nobody out of Washington State or the Pacific Northwest really even knows what Cle Elum is. It's a small town in Eastern Washington. So it's kind of like a little secret, like love letter nod to my Northwest people also. But yeah, that was funny that
But
night.
an accidental
maybe.
nod to Cleveland.
Yeah.
We made sure that we did not say hello Cleveland at our Cleveland show, because we tour. We were at the Grog Shop all the time. Like the tours, Ben Queller was on one of our buses. He was there like 3 days before.
Well, we were through there with Fred Armisen not that long ago.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We get to tour with all these cool people. So we have a real affinity and love for, the venues too, is a part, the people that run these venues are similar, like the entrepreneurial side of our life is like, we get to interact with, it's hard to run a venue. It's hard to how do you get a great band in every night of the week and have sold out shows in this world? So yeah, there's a lot of like intersecting kind of, like, I actually think of the Grog Shop as Cleveland whenever I say it. Doug Gillard from Guided by Voices used to be was in Not a Surf, and Doug's a good friend of ours, and Doug played on some stuff that I did in another band, and we just love Doug. So every time I'm in, I consider the Grog Shop the place that has a picture of Doug on the wall, So every time I'm in there, I take a picture of Doug and I send it to Doug. I say, love you, Doug, miss you. So there's like, that kind of stuff,
That's awesome. I got to the show early, as I tend to do, way too early. I get there as doors open and stuff. And first thing I do is I find the merch table. I saw Sarah at the merch table, and I looked down and I saw a sign that said, Merch Girl has a band. And I put two and two together, and I said, wait a minute, is this you? And she was like, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, how cool is that? And then, Ian, you had this sort of shtick on stage where you were taking your hat on and off and saying, you recognize me? Yeah. But what I thought was so cool, Sarah puts up the be back soon or be back in 30 or whatever on the merch table, goes to get on stage. You go and get dressed up in it's just incredible jumpsuit, lyrics all over it, and you have this incredible style and energy on stage. And I wondered, how much of that do you put on for the stage? Like, how much of that stage personality is you, and how much of it is putting on a performance, kind of becoming a character on stage?
I feel like I have to deal with you every day.
Yeah,
and
she
so
can't.
I can say
she can't speak. She can't speak to me.
It's authentic, and that type of energy on stage is.
That's what she has to deal with.
Good and bad is what I have to deal with.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's interesting because, the one of the, like, again, in the backwards way that we've made the band. So like we had the record done and we're like, this is a great record. We have like celebrity, our Matthew Cause and, great people playing on the record. And we've had a lot of support. We know lots of managers, we know booking, we're super well connected in the music business. So, and that whole thing was traveling along. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, we're on tour opening for our friends Not a Surf, who've been supportive, like right out of the gate. Sarah played them the songs when she was in Europe, and she's like, Ian and I are recording some songs. And they were like, what?
Well, Ira heard it first. I played it for Ira, who's one of my all-time favorite drummers. And, one of the best things about getting to tour with all of these amazing bands is I'm usually, when I watch, these people on stage, I'm usually always like watching the drummer and studying the drummer. So like, 15 years of, working in the touring industry have been like the best music or drum lessons that I could have ever gotten, because I'm getting to see all these just world-class musicians, from like their vantage point. Most people get to watch a show from the crowd viewpoint. A lot of times, like if I'm not working merch, I get to watch them from side stage and see everything they're doing, which has been really helpful for me and like my playing.
But the angle of the persona, like, in all of this, it's like we have all these people that were around in the touring business and da-da-da-da. But like, in the backwards way that we built the band, it's not like we played tons of shows before, it's not like we played as a local band. Like we live in Chattanooga. It's not like we played 100 shows for the last 3 years in Chattanooga. Like we got to basically make a record and then do a couple shows and then go on tour opening for Not a Surf. That's almost unheard of, like for a band. So we're very, 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 very lucky in that. But with, so this is not taken away from, this piece of the story is not taken away from that. It's like we're very, very lucky that we have, obviously, I think it's obvious we're lucky and very, very grateful. But in that, like, we didn't go, okay, well, how are we going to present ourselves on stage? Like, we just were like, let's go on tour, and we know how to tour, so let's just jump on stage. So Sarah made all my costumes. Sarah was like, you can't just get up in your hoodie, like your venue, your auto bar, First Ave, 7th Street. And if you can't just get up in your local venue shirt and jeans and your bus driver clothes. So like she made a bunch of cool costumes or cool thing. Like, and I was like, oh, so that was a creative, like Sarah was saying, it's like the art collective idea. We were just like, we had 4 weeks at home before the tour. So she's like, I'm going to make your costumes. I'm going to order you a bunch of these jumpsuits and like, and we'll just go, So we did that. And then it was like, going out on tour and getting up on stage. Like, I mean, I'll confess, like that's the first tour I've ever done where I've been a lead singer, a frontman. And actually the first show in Atlanta was the first show I've ever played bass. So when I think, the Cleveland show was like maybe the 12th show or something like that of the tour. That was the 12th time I've ever played bass in front of people. That's the 12th time I've ever played lead singing in front of people. So I think that the way that and to the purpose of your podcast too, is like the thing that's weird or interesting is like, as an older guy, an old fuck, if you will, the only thing that we have, and maybe also like the amount of time we spend with great artists, the only thing I think that we have is authenticity. Like we don't have the time or the mental, like we have sort of, you can hear, we have a narrative and we have a story and all that kind of stuff. And people are like, this is a crazy story. And we're like, yeah, try living it. You know what I mean? Like, try living it, So we have, so the shtick about, bus driver, and I think that's good because it's like, for me anyways, it's like, I'm not interested in becoming like an egomaniac, rock star, arrogant, separate from the people. I think what music needs to do in the world is to connect people. And, we had the experience of writing the songs and recording them and having support from all these people. But, getting thrown out and just going on tour and playing every night in front of live people and seeing like our last show of the tour was in Brooklyn. We had a headline show after the Not a Surf dates. We got reached out and this promoter said, "Hey, would you guys be interested in playing a show?" And we were like, "Well, we got the Not a Surf tour ends in Baltimore, and then we got to drop their gear off in Brooklyn." We're like, "Oh, yeah, well, we could do a Brooklyn show on this day." So we had a Brooklyn show the last day of the tour, and we got to be in front of Not a Surf fans who know Sarah as the merch girl, and they can see I'm not 16 years old. You know what I mean? So they're like, these guys these are Not a Surf kind of fans.
These
people.
are our people.
Yeah. So it was it was a nice. I mean, I think we were the perfect band to open for Not a Surf. Not that we're biased or anything, but like really. No. The response was great too. The fans loved it. We went over in every city. The people were super responsive and great.
I think it's such a Not a Surf thing to do too, to let their crew open for them.
Yeah.
Like they're like the nicest guys on planet Earth. And so it's just, I mean, it's a singular story. It's good.
Like I said,
we're the only guys that could execute,
Like I said, I had my review and I can't think of anything more rock and roll than that.
Thanks. Like we think so too.
Tour managers playing the opener and stuff. I thought that was so cool. And it was impossible to ignore the parallel of you getting in the jumpsuit and taking the hat on and off with like Superman with Clark Kent taking the glasses on and off. Yeah. And then Sarah, you've got a drum set that says Sargent Pepper on it, and so I thought that was really cool. And I know that your name's Sarah Sargent, but you add Pepper, I think, when you're on stage. That's your idea?
I called her Sarah Sargent Pepper, and she was like, "Why the hell did I never think of that?" Like early on, and so she's had that since we met. I
think that's so cool. I think that's really cool.
It was good. Too obvious,
I guess that's the most like stage persona that I get, is just adding the pepper onto the name. It's like when I'm on stage, I'm Sarah Sargent Pepper, but I'm still the same Sarah that you're going to get if you talk to me at merch. It's like still the same.
Yeah. It's all we got. I think for us, it's like, that's the persona thing and just being natural and just being like, we're here. Like, I'm not going to fool anybody thinking like, oh yeah, I got this awesome hair and I got this, as you get older, like it's funny because old fucks are saying like that song was probably written because I started wearing Caddy's reading glasses. They're the best reading glasses. I was like, I can't read my phone anymore. And let's go for a hike. And then I'm like, I can't read my phone anymore. Where's my reading glasses, honey? And she's like, play the guitar. I'm like, okay. Oh, and that's how that song came about, so.
Yeah. I love that song too. And then you're talking about being in an audience in a situation with the younger person and how you relate to things differently, I thought was really interesting. One thing you don't got when you're 20 is 2020. I think it's a great lyric.
That's just couldn't believe, lyric. When I spit that lyric out, I was like, how did nobody think of this? How is this not in because it was in 2020, and I was almost like, because it was 2020 at the time, it was like in pandemic, and I'm just like, either we wrote the most timely song, or this song is just not going to age well. But it was just
it's such an incredible lyric. I love that lyric so much. It's great.
Yeah.
I love the way you talk about your songs too. The lyrics are great. You're a great writer. You write them together. You're great writers, songwriters. But I love the way you talk about your music too. I Am a Robot. It's just a fun song, and obviously there's a whole lot of we all deal with a certain amount of technology in our lives, and all sort of feel like it's taken over at some point. Right. But the time at which you wrote it too, and I saw on your Instagram post about it when it released. You'd said we all need, in a sense, a reboot, and that's kind of what that song's about. And I thought that was just really poignant, just really interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting. That song, that song was the first. Like we wrote, like I said, we wrote. I Wanted to Sleep, and then I think it was about then I think maybe Did I Get High. We had a couple of kind of boneheaded ones that didn't make the record, and we had a couple of other songs that didn't quite make it. But Robot was like the first song that I think in the sequence of writing the record that was like, this is a great song. It was like we looked at each other and we were like, we just wrote a great song. Like
it was stuck in my head for like.
It's stuck in my head forever. It's one of those songs that like you hear in musicians talk about the songs that come fast are the best songs and all that kind of stuff. And it was so obvious that was happening and is still happening. The technology kind of take over, and now AI is the new thing. And it's like, wow, this song is really I think there's some kind of collective consciousness or universal. Some universal spiritual connection there that is basically where songs come from. There's it's like all your songs. I think it's just so catchy and it's simple enough, and the chorus especially is simple enough that it can get stuck in your head so easily. It's just so repeatable, and it's such an earworm. Like I've had it in my head all day too. So we won.
Great song.
We won the contest. No, it's funny because to tag on what we were talking about too. Interestingly, like the persona and then playing them live, is interesting because we sort of have had this sort of not bubble, but just like because of the evolution of the thing. Seeing what songs went over live and presenting them live. And obviously we had, Louis from Not a Surf playing keys for us. Our friend Matthew played guitar. Matthew Pittman, who played guitar on the tour, plays on pretty much a lot of the record. He didn't play all the guitars on, but all the weird kind of, he plays a lot of the piano. He's pretty much on every song on the record. And he was kind of like Mike Hagler, who produced the record, was like, I was like, I need this guy. I need a piano part on this one. He was like, I got the guy. And then, and we just fell in love with Matthew. He's such an incredible artist and great songwriter himself. And, but in the recording, the recording process is kind of one thing. And we had the songs done and the releasing of the album and funding it ourselves and sort of shopping it around and trying to find a label or whatever to put it out. All those kind of things that, and then when we started playing them live on this tour, it was like I saw people mouthing "old fucks," or like people requested, like in Austin, somebody shouted, "Play old fucks."
Several shows, actually.
Yeah, and we were just
at
like,
several shows,
what?
People requested that song,
and we were like, and we kind of like, so you get this thing where you make a record, or you've got a set list of songs, and you rehearse them, and you go, okay, like, how are these going to go over, and what things are going to connect with people? Like I think. Oh, that song's obviously gonna. I wrote them, or we wrote them, so they would connect with people. That's the whole point. Is like we're feeling sort of isolated in the pandemic stuff, and I think with social media and stuff, people feel isolated all the time, anyways. And we've been in this let's make our Instagram follow, you know, all that shit that everybody hates. And all of a sudden, like, we're out in front of live people and people are kind of mouthing the word. And we, you know, kind of wrote them with that idea in mind of like, okay, well, if people's attention is so, you know, they're scrolling and everybody's got this stuff going on, like, how do we break through that? How do we just get the songs to be just the most like direct, like, you know, it's not like we sat out to become pop star like Sabrina Carpenter, perfectly manicured. You know, this is a catchy Taylor Swift song. We're just like, how do we write songs that just like say what we want to say about life, and say them in the quickest way possible. And so we got kind of a formula. That's kind of how our you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than a formula. It's not formulaic at all, but it's simple enough to be extremely catchy, but it's also so layered, and there's so much meaning behind it. It really comes across. And I tell you, I'm going to be the guy in the audience next time, mouthing the words, singing the words, and asking for old fucks to be played, because I tell you, when I latch onto something, when I find something that I love, I am the most loyal fan there is. So anytime I get a chance to see you guys, I will see you guys in concert.
Too. I'm not with bands too. I'm not with bands too, or art or whatever. You know, we love it, and it's really it's wild for us to be in this situation, because like we literally just came off the tour, and the response was so amazing. We've got all these conversations with people, and like, wow, fans or people that love what we're doing and that actually get it. I mean, that you already have a podcast that actually is exactly what Old Fucks is about.
I know,
like your podcast is exactly.
When you explained to me the premise, I was like, "This is perfect.
It's our whole life.
Is like exactly
It's literally like our whole life." So it's really refreshing, because again, the isolation of stuff makes it feel like, you know, you don't have the feedback, or you know, you don't have, so there's nothing better than going, if you can take your podcast, you want to take your podcast on the road, you know. We got a tour bus, you know what I mean? Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
but you know, like, that's connecting with people in live music it's really the thing that we've put our whole life into, and sustaining that and trying to make that with our bus business and stuff. And now we're on the opposite and another end of the spectrum, where it's like, okay, well, now we actually are going to be able to hopefully make our own songs sustain and put those across and build a community and build fans and deliver songs that mean things to people. You know, it's like, it really does open up, you know, Every.Thing.After. It really does open up a whole new kind of like, that's, since we've been done with the tour, we're just like, wow, what's next? We've got some other songs that we're going to start releasing. We got a handful of other singles that we're putting out and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah.
Well, I can honestly not think of a place that I'm happier than in a live show, a live concert. And so I feel like you two have built your life around it and built maybe the best possible life by doing so. I just think it's incredible. Like, you can tour with creative people that you're inspired by. You can inspire others. And another thing I want to mention, just as I was talking about sort of the depth and the meaning of your songs, I've noticed a post on Instagram where you described Goodbye Night Sky, which another incredible song. And you described it as the worst day you ever had was over. You woke up the next morning and figured out how to solve the problem that you were sure was going to destroy your life. We try to make all our songs anthems. Not all anthems are sung in the football stadium. This anthem is intended to remind you that everything will always be fine. I just think that's beautiful.
Thanks,
I think it's something that we all need a reminder of. You know, we're in a time when it's just, everything's challenging, and everybody needs that reminder. I think it's just beautiful.
Thanks. It's incredible. I mean, just to have that feedback from another person is just, it's unbelievable to us. Like, because, you know, like Sarah said, you know, we were writing these songs in a stressful time, and obviously we recognize the world is very stressful right now, and we've dug our life into, like, you know, trying to support musicians that we care about. Our best, I mean, we really, our clients in our bus business, we love all of them, and we want to see success for all of them. And you know, we're in the trenches there on that kind of stuff. So that's fascinating. But to see other people on the side of, you know, podcasts and all these kind of things that get it is like, those are the most validating. I mean, you get that. It's really validating. I can't tell you what it means to us. I mean, just getting up and playing and having people cheer for us. You know, you don't expect those things. You go, all right, we're going to go kick ass tonight. You know, we're going to give these people what they want, and they have no idea who we are. They've never heard these songs before. Let's see if this shit sticks against the wall. So it's kind of like, you know, we get up there and we're just like, okay, hopefully our songs are boneheaded enough that by the second chorus, they'll, hey, that guy's mouthing the word. The first time I would see that, like, Goodbye Nights Guy, I'd see people kind of, oh, yeah, they're getting this. And it's just it's an unbelievable.
I think I Wanted to Sleep, too. A lot of people will sing that on the second pass through. It's like they've already got it, which is awesome.
Yeah, the various, and everything I want to say about life is embedded in those songs. The lyrics are all completely, like, I don't think I could write a song that doesn't have, what my worldview is in it. I don't know if I can. I haven't. A lot of people write character. There's a song. Lovely Rita Meet a Maid or whatever. Like there's these songs about characters. I don't know if I can do that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe the future will try that stuff, but like certainly to write what's in our hearts and what we really think the world needs is what we're going to try to.
That's amazing.
Condense our thing down into.
Yeah, I could tell you from my perspective. So I was there taking pictures for your set. And so I'm like in this rock shop. There's not really a lot of space between the stage and the crowd. It's like pretty tight. So I'm kind of like there, like on a wedge between you and the crowd. And I can tell you, being in that position, I could feel the energy going both ways. And it was, it's almost like a whiplash sort of feeling because you're giving this energy to them and they're giving this energy back to you. And just the opportunity to be in the middle of that and to feel that for me was just great. It was one of the first shows that I've done this with. I sort of just started doing the concert photography and the podcast and everything. So it was just an incredible feeling. So congratulations. I think you've put together something that's just extremely special and I wish you the best with it.
You too. Thank you for the photos that you took. They're amazing. Wonderful. And the fact that you're doing this podcast too is like really great. It gives people like us an outlet to be able to talk about what we love. And
anytime.
Yeah, man.
I'd love to have you anytime you want to talk about something. Next album, come on, talk about the album. Anytime you want to talk about anything, and I'll see you at shows too.
Yeah,
and if there's anything we can do to collaborate, if there's anybody else that you want to kind of put out there, I can. I don't have a huge following right now, but I'd be happy to do whatever I can. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Building
and
stuff.
Sarah kind of teased and mentioned that you might have an acoustic guitar or something with you, and that you might do a little bit of something. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a wrap up, or how you want? You would just call that a day, and then I could just grab it and just like rock out a version.
Yeah.
Jaded, or if I just faded. Never thought that it would happen. Guess it just happens. Always thought that I would notice, but there was no notice. You better listen up, 'cause the world's all around. Better listen up, 'cause the world keeps spinning round. Better listen up. You'll be sitting in a corner of a bar someday. Some kind of 20-something gonna sit down next to you and say, life is perfect, life is just a gift. And if you listen carefully, you can almost taste it. Life is perfect. Life is just a gift. We just need some reminders from someone who hasn't faced it yet. 'Cause one thing you ain't got when you're 20 is 2020. Oh, fucks like me, we got nothing to say. Said kids these days. Oh, fucks like me, we got nothing to say. Said kids these days. I don't know if I was jaded or if I just faded. Never thought that it happened. Guess it just happens. Always thought that I would notice. There was no notice. Better listen up, 'cause the words are all around. Better loosen up, 'cause the world keeps spinning round. You better listen up. You'll be sitting in your driveway in a car someday. Something reminds you of all the things you didn't say. Life was perfect, life was just a gift. With everything that you've never done, you just gone and wasted it. Life is perfect, life is just a gift. We just need some reminders from someone who hasn't faced it yet. With 20/20 vision, you could step back to the past. With everything that you ever learned, you'd make each moment last. Life is perfect, just the way it is. We just need some reminders from someone who hasn't faced it yet. One thing you ain't got when you're 20 is 20/20. Oh, folks like me, we got nothing to say except for kids these days. Oh, folks like me, we got nothing to say except kids these days. Oh, folks like me, we got nothing to say except kids these days. Oh, folks like me, we got nothing to say except kids these days. 'Cause one thing you ain't got when you're 20 is 20/20.
I'm Sarah Sargent Pepper from the Cle Elum, and my ETA is I'm a professional drummer.
It happened. It got manifested. Yeah. Hey, I'm Ian Lee from the Cle Elum. My ETA is I write songs, and I write them for you, the people. All we got is each other. Dig our songs, because they're for you. They're not for me. They're for you.